So I've been playing Honkai Star Rail lately as a way to pass time, and I can genuinely say after a month of playing, past my honeymoon period, that this game is definitely better than Genshin. To me at least. And it is not to make fun of Genshin or say that it's a bad game, but it's just the fact that some of the things they fixed in this game was some of my biggest gripes about Genshin in the first place. And it just makes me want to play this game way more compared to Genshin, where I had a fallout with the game. So to start off, we can talk about the level design of the game. And in terms of level design, it's not open world at all. In fact, it's a bunch of small disconnected maps, as you can see here. If you look at the worlds, there's the first world you go into. So there is a bunch of disconnected maps, and they're not humongous, but they're a decent size for some of them. And honestly, I kind of prefer this compared to Genshin, where it was a open world, and honestly it felt like kind of a crappy copy of Breath of the Wild, and I've really never liked that. And it's nothing wrong with Genshin, I just don't really like open world games, and I just didn't think they did a good enough job for me to want to explore other than like the first like few days I played it. And one of my biggest problem with Genshin about the large size map is that it took forever to update the game for new content and areas. And I really get that it takes forever. Like I'm not saying the developers are slow. It's just that I really do not like it. From how long it took, it made it hard to really log on every day, and to expound the fact that the game became a collectathon pretty much when a new area dropped, and I really could not care less. I really didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to run around in a pretty crappy Breath of the Wild copy and look for items, right? I didn't really like that, and it just made me not want to play even more. Like when Inazuma came out, I really was like really excited, but then I was just like, I don't really want to look for everything, you know? And the worst part is that one of the things, like your stamina, is connected to the things you have to find, and there was like 100 of them, and I really just didn't want to do that. Like I didn't want to watch a YouTube video and take like an hour or two looking for that, because it was so boring and I just didn't care enough, right? And I think the benefit of this game having smaller maps is that since it requires less work, the update should come sooner, right? I'm pretty sure in 1.2 for that patch that they're gonna have a content update, and I'm really excited for that. And it's gonna be 5 days before patch 1.1 for the here, but even then they have a lot of stuff for content, so I don't really mind. But the fact that content updates will be relatively sooner is so much better to me, just in general. And speaking of story, I love this game's story way more. And it's probably because Paimon is in your ear, repeating every single thing and every single story beat to your ear. And I just makes the game way easier to play and listen to, and I really like that. And I just think it has a better overall story. It has better music. It has better lore. It has better characters in general. Because when I played Genshin, I really couldn't care less of the story. Any of the story, honestly, I just didn't care. I would always skip dialogue. And I'm not gonna say the story here is way better than Genshin's. It's probably not. It's still a gacha game at the end of the day. But it's still, I think, better, and it does add to me wanting to log on and me playing content and actually like, you know, enjoying the content more than I would normally. It makes it feel less of a grind sometimes, and I kind of like that. I just want to say that this game's combat system is turn-based, and I'm a massive fan of that because games like Final Fantasy and Persona are my favorite games. And if you can say that you prefer Genshin's turn-based combat, and I really wouldn't blame you. But I just personally like how team building works in this game, and how a character's element does matter because of the opponent and not just because of your character, right? In Genshin, you could run Hu Tao and Zinkyu and just kind of like out damage the content pretty easily. And for you to not die, you just have to have Zhongli, right? You put up a shield, you had Zhongli, and you pretty much couldn't die unless you tried to. In this game, it's a little bit more complicated than that, and I kind of like that, you know, like that I have to use a fire DPS for some moments. Sometimes I have to use a quantum DPS, and it's just way nicer, right? And I just like this way more, and it makes me want to theory craft in this game much more than I compared to Genshin in general. the biggest quality of life improvements in this game is how much more free-to-play friendly it is, I think, compared to Genshin, for me personally. So an example would be that the Forgotten Chaos, which is kind of the Spiral Abyss, you can say. There's a light cone store, which light cones are just weapons, and there's one light cone free for each class of the game. And they're all pretty good, right? Fermata is good on pretty much every DPS, nihility character. And then there's the Seriousness of Breakfast, which is a erudition light cone, and it's the best erudition light cone probably, or the second or third best, right? And a lot of these options are either the second best or third best choice. And it's nice because it means that you can get a character, you don't have to look for weapons, right? You don't have to wait and get a gotcha weapon. Not all characters work perfectly with the weapons, but the fact that most of them work with it, it's pretty good. Okay? And you get this from clearing the Forgotten Chaos, which obviously there's limited of, right? But also you could beat the game's bosses right here. Where is it? The Ascension Materials, right? If you beat them, you get 5 each. So you do build them up a little bit slow, but still you're building them up. So they're not horrible. And then there's also another free-to-play weapon, which you can get from Herda's Simulated Universe, which will be found here. And if you go to Herda's store, like I said, you can go to Herda's store, and this is the other section of the free-to-play weapons. And these, you can superimpose them to 5, and since they're 5 stars, they have 5-star stats, which does make a little bit of a difference. And they're all pretty good. I'm not gonna say that they're the best 5 stars. In fact, some of the 4 stars cannot damage them, but they're still pretty good. And I'm gonna say that that there's nothing wrong with them. If you need a weapon, 5-star weapon, you always use this as a, you know, like a secondary DPS, right? Where light cones really matter for your DPS, but not as much on your supports, somewhat, right? And I mean, like, for an example would be my main DPS for Dan Hong. I have one of the 5-star light cones because he needs to crit on his skill, because if it crits, it's lows. So I use this light cone to buff my crit rate, and it makes a pretty big difference. Another section you can get a 5-star weapon is in the Starlight Exchange, where you can get for 600 Undying Starlight. You can get one of the all of these, and these are all the special 5 stars for all of the 5-star characters in the standard banner, and they're all really good. Like, Jeopard's light cone is pretty amazing. It gives you everything you want in a preservation character or a tank character, pretty much. Clara's light cone, which I have on this main account, is pretty broken. It literally makes your next character, preferably your DPS, do 30% more damage for free, and gives her a energy regeneration rate buff, which is pretty broken. And they're all just pretty good. And honestly, the fact that you can have them and that they'll work mostly a lot of the characters, and probably for the future too, is really, really nice. And I kind of like that, because if you're willing to give up 30 wishes to get a better weapon for your 5-star, then I think that's fair. That's pretty fair to me. And to talk about the characters in game, all the 5 stars they give you are pretty good, right? The preservation tank main character is really good, probably one of the best tanks in the game. Natasha is a free healer, and even though she's a free healer, she's really good. She's good enough to do for most content, and she's probably gonna get power crap. Don't get me wrong, but it's probably gonna take forever for her to get power crap. Serval is a really good DPS or sub DPS. Who else is free here? I have Dan Hong. Dan Hong is a pretty good it's really good. In fact, he has a second highest DPS rate out of all the characters, and he's a free character you get, I think, in the first 10 minutes. And you get Asta too, you get Jingyu and Herda. So I mean, like, you're fine. it, I usually say that the characters you get at the start of Genshin does make a big difference. In this game, maybe not so much because all other characters are good. Like, you're gonna have to use some of the free-to-play characters at the start, and that's fine. So there was a beginner banner here, right? The beginner banner, I don't have it anymore because I did it, but the beginner banner had a really nice 8 for 8 tickets for 10 pulls. But instead of 20, it was 50, and at the 50th, you get a 5-star character. And it's really, really nice because it can determine how you build your account, and it's really important that you get a 5-star early because they're pretty busted in this game, and I really like that, right? And if we want to talk about the 5 stars that you possibly could have gotten, these are all the 5 stars, right? Let's start from here. Okay, Bailu, great healer. If you get her, there's only 2 healers in the game, and if you get her and you have the free Natasha, you can probably progress your content really easily, even if you don't have the best characters, because you just have 2 healers, which is the most important role pretty much right now for clearing content, because you need to have 2 teams. And Jing is a really good DPS, probably one of the top 3 DPS in the game in terms of just pure damage. Clara, broken sub DPS / tank, right? Japard, literally with Japard, you can literally not have a healer and you can just spam his ult, which gives you a big shield. So he's a pseudo healer. Bronya is probably the best 5-star here because she enables hyper carries and she manipulates turn order, which is insane. So if you get her, you should be really happy. Welt is pretty good because he slows the enemy down, and it's the most important thing in turn-based games because slower you are, the more turns you have, and he's imaginary, which is the rarest element right now, so he can break shields for imaginary opponents, and that's pretty important sometimes. And if you get Himiko, which I got, honestly, Himiko sucks pretty badly. Okay, she doesn't suck, but she's the worst character by a mile out of all of them. She doesn't do a lot of she doesn't do a lot of damage. She does decent AoE, but she just sucks. But I love her, so it's okay, I guess. So artifact farming is still in this game. The relic RNG, artifact RNG, is still pretty bad. I'm in the process of that right now with my characters, and honestly, it's pretty sad because it's probably the worst part of the game. But it's whatever, right? But they've done a lot of things to make it a little nicer, and one of them is that there's a omni synthesizer here, and this is if you salvage gold relics, you can spend getting a piece that you want specifically, like, hey, I want a quantum piece for the head, hands, body, or feet, right? So you can pick a specific part that you need to have. So this is really nice, right? I think it can get you a piece you need specifically. Not amazing, but it's pretty good, right? But what's really good is that there's a thing called self-modeling resin. Okay, you get 1 from the battle pass, and you're getting 1 for the patch 1.1 event, and it means that you can choose a piece, and you can choose what main stat it has, which is a really big deal because some things are a pain in the ass to get. An example would be the spheres. You're rolling for the spheres, and you need a wind damage orb, right? Like, you need a wind damage orb. You can click this, and you can use a self-modeling resin and pick the specific main stat. And look how many stats you could have possibly gotten. So this is so easy, and I would suggest, if I were you, to save that shit. Or after you build a character and you're just gonna get that one piece that you need a specific main stat on, save it. It's gonna be perfect. And that's what I'm doing. I'm saving it for maybe when I have to build Kafka or Blade and I just can't get one piece because I have a lot of time right now, right? So I love that. And honestly, it makes like, usually when you farm for sets like this, It's pretty difficult, so you're gonna have to use, like, I save up a lot of fuel and just go on a big farming spree. But the fact that there's self-modeling resin could save you that one piece that could take you like 5 days of farming. So I really like that. In the making of this video, patch 1.1 will be coming out in 5 days. And it gives me a lot of hope for Star Rail. Because since there's no story content updates, which is sad, but that's fine. It's only one patch. I'm sure in 1.2 they're gonna give us the content update we want for the story. The content in 1.1 is pretty nuts. He has 4 events that all give you Stellar Jade, so it's good for free-to-play players, right? And he has the self-modeling version I just mentioned, which is really important because he can get you that one piece, and I really like that. And then also the 1.1 update has 10 free pulls. 10 free pulls. That is better than what Genshin did in their 1-year anniversary. You also get a free weapon that you can superimpose to level 5, which is insane. It's a Nihility light cone that works for most Nihility characters, so it's great. And in patch 1.2, we're getting Yukong. We're getting a free imaginary character. It's so free-to-play friendly in terms of rewards that I love that for me and for other people, because, you know, not everybody has money to spend on gacha games. And it makes the game so much enjoyable when a free-to-play person has somewhat of a leveling field, right? And I personally hope that each update is somewhat like this, because if it's not, you know, and it goes through the content route, then this game will suffer even more than Genshin from how small the game is. So, the game isn't perfect, right? I'm not gonna say the game is perfect. It does have a few problems that, and I have a few gripes about, right? First off, the game launched with only 3 areas, but it's arguably 2, because the Herta space station, you're there for less than an hour, so that's like that's like half of a map. And then there's Jarlow, which is a full-size map with a full story and content, so I don't mind that. And then there's here, I don't even know how to say that, but we have the full map, I think. I'm not really sure, but the story isn't even finished yet, so it's only really half of the content. So there's not a lot of content when it launched, so that's one of my few gripes about it. But hopefully with the content updates and smaller map sizes, that the updates are more constant, and I prefer that it's that way. So I'm really hoping. And the game has a resource problem in general. So I have 241 travelers purple books, right? And you might be like, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. That's 200 comes from the battle pass. Same with the money. Before I bought the battle pass for this account, I had around 600,000, 700,000 for money, and I had literally like 40 purple books, and I had built 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I built 7 characters, so I didn't even build that. So I have a full team, and I'm almost out of materials, and it's a big problem. But patch 1.1 has a big update, and it has a lot of events with a lot of rewards. So I'm hoping that the drought for material is a little less, and because for free to play, they're bound to, like, especially me when I first played Genshin, you know, the material drought that happens halfway through like AR50 is that you're bound to make mistakes, which I did for Genshin. And if you're a free to play person who hasn't played Genshin and made those mistakes, you're gonna really realize them too late, right? And not everybody's gonna do the research like some people will, and it might ruin their account, right? Not ruin, but require more time to fix. And so I'm hoping that the patch 1.1 update fixes that. Overall, Honkai Star Rail has tons of changes that are mostly positive and make the game personally better to me compared to Genshin. Hopefully, this trend of positive changes stays to avoid the pitfalls of Genshin. And to end on a happy note, patch 1.1 seems like it's doing what I want and the updates that people wanted. And so I think this game has a bright future.